Part 138. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1371. I have something else to do, you can do it by yourself. Fu Nanli took the wine glass and left the private room. Uncle Li came in and looked at Gu Xiao happily. The old man and his wife didn't come today, are you unhappy? Gu Xiao quickly shook his head, no, no. They have their own difficulties, and having the young master declare your identity personally is quite significant. Okay, I know. The young master bought you a house outside, because he rarely lives in the shallow lake, so he is more comfortable living outside. He can just go back to eat during holidays and so on. Okay, thank you, Uncle Li. Fu Nanli went downstairs with a wine glass and saw Xiao Lianjun socializing with others. He walked by and said hello. Xiao Lianjun was very surprised, I really didn't expect that young master Fu, you actually to admit such an illegitimate child so openly and honestly. Fu Nanli smiled, although the child has a special status, I still want to give him a chance to live openly and honestly under the sun. Parents are wrong, but children are always innocent. Mr. Xiao, do you think I am right? Xiao Lianjian's eyes were a little complicated. Children are always innocent. Children are always innocent. He smiled and said, that's also because the young master is excellent. You can do it well when you bring him out. He is handsome, tall, and very capable. Apart from his not-so-good background, there is nothing wrong with him. Fu Nanli took a sip of red wine, even if he is not so good, even if he has some defects, I will recognize him more. It is already very unfortunate. If he still cannot be recognized by his family, how uncomfortable will the child feel? In the long run, I am afraid that it's about holding back the illness. The smile on Xiao Lianjian's face was a bit unbearable, young Master Fu has a kind heart. Fu Nanli smiled, children are always innocent. There is no way. Xiao Lianjun nodded, yes, you are right. After the dinner, Fu Nanli, Wen Qiao and Gu Xiao left the cruise ship surrounded by bodyguards, with heated discussions behind them. Fu Xiao has been pushed to the forefront before. It was his mother's irresponsible behavior, letting him roll on the edge of the knife, regardless of whether he was in pain or sad. Now he has attracted the attention of the world again, but this time, he can hold his chest high and finally live his life in an upright manner. Fu Nanli and Wen Qiao got into the car. Fu Xiao stood beside the car. His brother bowed. Fu Nanli waved his hand to him, I'm tired today. Let's go home. Fu Xiao stood there, with his brother and sister-in-law in front of him, and his grandmother behind him. For the first time, he felt that he could have such a word as warmth. Before the car drove away, Fu Nanli looked at him and solemnly said, Happy birthday. After Grandma Gu got in the car, she finally couldn't stop crying, Mr. Fu invited me here. I didn't expect that he would have such a generous and kind heart. He would introduce you to everyone so formally. She values you very much, your mother is not worthy of being a human being. Gu Xiao comforted his grandmother, don't cry. It's a good thing not to cry. Now that you have someone to rely on, I feel relieved. Back home, Wen Qiao helped Fu Nanli take off his suit, untie his tie, and threw it on the glass table in the entrance hall, like a virtuous wife. Are you tired today? Those reporters have been pestering them endlessly, wanting to get to the bottom of things. If they have anything to ask, doesn't Fu Nanli know the inside story of the matter better than they do? Since he chose to reveal his brother's identity, it meant that he didn't care. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1372. Those people always want to unearth the dark side of human nature and want others to spread their bloody wounds in front of the public. Yeah, not bad. Finally, something was settled. Consider it a birthday gift to him. When Xiao pulled him upstairs, this birthday gift was thoughtful. He was very touched. I can see it. Fu Nanli is really a person who is cold on the outside and hot on the inside. He looks cold, but he is very kind to the people he cherishes and values. Even for those who have hurt him, he can give them another chance, such as Fu Cheng and Fu Xiao. Or, for example, herself. For no reason, Wen Xiao felt sorry for him. He longed for family and love so much, more than anyone else. He had been alone for so long. Wen Xiao reached out and hugged his waist. Fu Nanli was stunned for a moment, and his slender fingers gently inserted into her long hair. What's wrong? Nothing, I just want to hug you. The man laughed softly. Why do you look like a child? Let me tell you, if Fu Xiao dares to treat you badly in the future, I will be the first to hit him. How much criticism will you have to suffer for him? The man laughed fondly. Don't worry, compared with my wife, my brother is the most important. If he really makes a mistake, you can hit him as much as you want. What did you say to Xiao Lianjun? I can see from the second floor that he doesn't look good. I told him about Fu Xiao. Fu Xiao's situation is somewhat similar to that of the child living in Edinburgh. Xiao Lianjun was very moved when he heard it. I hope he can agree with what I said. Only when that child comes to the table can you just ask them for help. I hope so. In prison, Gu Yunzu only got the news the next day. She thought she had heard wrong and murmured to herself, this is impossible, this is impossible. How could Fu Nanli really tell everyone about Gu Xiao's identity? Gu Xiao is an illegitimate child, doesn't he feel ashamed? Not only did he admit Gu Xiao's identity, he also hosted a banquet for all the prominent figures in Haikan, and asked everyone to pay more attention to Xiao. He also introduced Gu Xiao to the news media, and the internet was full of praise. Gu Yunzi gritted his teeth. Conspiracy, Fu Nanli must have some conspiracy. Our Gu Xiao is simple and naive, and must have been touched by his behavior. Maybe he immediately returned the things Fu Nanli gave him with both hands. That was his idea. He is despicable and very deep. No solution anymore. After Gu Yunzu hung up the phone, she kept muttering to herself, despicable, despicable, and shameless. Her hopes were dashed, and she knew her son would never again be on her side. After calculating for half her life, she would have nothing in the end. Such a huge blow made her unable to calm down anymore, and she became mentally disturbed. Not long after, he was diagnosed with mental disorder and transferred from prison to a mental hospital. Fu Xiao thought carefully and chose a sunny day to visit her. The medical staff said to him, "Your mother is quite aggressive. It's fine if a woman comes close to her. Once a man comes close, she will hit others and talk about Fu Nanli while fighting back." The person she hated the most was Fu Nanli. Even if she was crazy, she still hated him with all her heart. The medical staff led Fu Xiao to the ward. Because she was aggressive, Gu Yunzu was placed in a separate ward. She hugged her knees, sat on the bed, and kept banging her head against the wall. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1373. When the door closed, she looked up at Fu Xiao. Suddenly, as if she had lost her mind and gone crazy, she rushed over and grabbed Fu Xiao's neck. Her eyes were as wide as copper bells and her face was hateful. Fu Nanli, I'll kill you, I'm going to kill you, you took my son away. Fu Xiao grabbed his humming wrist. Mom. Gu Yunzi gradually calmed down, hugged Fu Xiao and cried loudly, Gu Xiao, it's you, it's Gu Xiao, it's my son, come with me quickly. Fu Nanli wants to harm you, he wants to harm you. Fu Xiao held her wrist tightly, he is my brother. He is very good to me and will not harm me. You can recuperate here. He didn't stay long. When he left, Gu Yunzu started banging his head against the wall again, seeming to be greatly stimulated. Fu Xiao lowered his eyes, closed the door, and went out. In midsummer, there is an olive tree outside the small white building, and the sound of cicadas is endless. Fu Xiao got in the car and stayed away from the hospital and his past. Zhou Tao's main heroine palace battle drama has caught up with the summer season. It will be broadcast on dual satellite TVs and 3 online platforms, and the battle is unprecedented. Everyone is looking forward to this well-produced, twists and turns plot, which is full of excitement and the heroine upgrades to a palace battle drama. Zhou Tao was a little nervous, fearing that the greater the audience's expectations, the greater the disappointment. Moreover, after a drama is filmed and various post-production processes are completed, the timeline is too long and things are not released. As time goes by, you will fall into self-doubt. It started airing on July 15. On the day it aired, there were a lot of pessimistic press releases. They said it didn't look good, that the pace was too slow, that the traditional costumes were inconsistent with history, and that the male and female protagonists had no sense of cliché. Even though there were countless explosion-proof drafts, this drama was still a hit right after it aired. Both platforms broke 2.0 ratings. Each of the 3 major online platforms has a single-day playback volume of over 50 million, which together means a single-day playback volume of over 150 million. This is a big bang. Moreover, it has only been 2 episodes, and the heroine has just entered the palace, and the real palace battle has not yet started. However, because of the talent show, all kinds of beauties, all the concubines selected for the show are pure natural beauties without plastic surgery, and each one of them is very beautiful and unique. This alone is enough to attract many viewers. What's more, there are many veteran actors in charge, and the director is also a powerful national director. When the ratings came out the next day, Zhou Tao breathed a sigh of relief. The goal I set for myself was to break 1.5 on both channels, but I didn't expect it to exceed expectations. With a bang sound, Lu Yuyu opened a bottle of champagne, celebrating our Tao Zi's promotion from the preparatory top class to the female top class. Wen Qiao threw a script to Zhou Tao, I have a movie here, take a look. Zhou Tao pressed her shoulder, can't I even have time to rest? There are only a few actors in our company, and we often receive good scripts, so you all have no time to spare. As soon as Zhou Tao's fashion drama was finished filming, Wen Qiao worked hard to pick up movies for her, which was really a success. Zhou Tao took over the script and it is a low-cost suspense film. A beautiful mother and daughter accidentally stumble onto a desert island and discover a highly decomposed corpse. After that, they have a series of high-energy and terrifying encounters. It looks very exciting. Do you really want to shoot on the island or set up the scene in a studio? If we go to the island to shoot, someone has already offered to sponsor the venue. That is Mr. Liu. He has a small island in Nanjing. He is a free sponsor. He does not charge money and can shoot for a few months. It is absolutely generous. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1374. Zhou Tao was immersed in the script, it's quite interesting to shoot on location. Have you chosen the actress to play my mother? Wen Qiao, yes, Yao Wen. Zhou Tao's eyes lit up. She was a Grand Slam Best Actress. It was definitely an honor for her to work with the senior. Is it really her? If she takes it, I'm totally willing. Well, she has agreed to take it. This film is quite high energy, has twists and turns, and has profound meaning. The production cost is not high, and the probability of winning an award is not small. But with Yao Wen here, maybe you will be overwhelmed. At the time, I didn't know if I could be nominated as a leading actress, but it would be nice to be nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Okay, when will filming start? You'll be joining the team at the end of July. You should be fine, right? Jo Tanen was very excited to collaborate with Yao Wen. There is no problem at all. At the end of July, it was midsummer and hot, so Zhou Tao flew to Nanjing first. On the plane, I looked at the people sitting next to me, and I was a little confused. Why are you with me? Wen Xiao chuckled, didn't I just graduate? I have very free time. Going to the island with you is just a vacation. After taking a 2-hour flight to reach the island in Nanjing, the group took a speedboat and arrived at the island. The island here has lush vegetation, blue water, golden beaches, palm trees as far as the eye can see, and the sea and sky are one color, making people feel relaxed and happy. Is this the island sponsored by Master Fu? Wen Xiao smiled slightly, no. Who is that? You guess. Once these words came out, could Zhou Tao not know, Lu Wenzhou? Well, it was him. He didn't receive any money. The producer was very happy. Zhou Tao raised her eyebrows, okay. Yao Wen arrived at the island the next day. There were floating hotels built one after another near the sea. Yao Wen and her assistant lived in one alone, while Zhou Tao and Wen Xiao lived in one. Wen Xiao took Zhou Tao to visit Yao Wen. Yao Wen was casually dressed and well maintained, and she looked to be less than 40 years old. Zhou Tao shook hands with her. Who would believe you if you play my mother? You're just as good as my sister. Yao Wen said happily, I am indeed old enough to be your mother. I watched your Love in the Mountains and Rivers, and the performance was very good. I follow it every day. Zhou Tao bowed, thank you, teacher, for liking me. You're welcome. We need to get more familiar with each other so that we won't feel unfamiliar when the time comes. Good teacher. Don't be a teacher. Just call me Sister Wen. Wen Xiao also called Sister Wen. Yao Wen is a person who pays great attention to skincare. The sun here is very hot and the ultraviolet rays are strong. She said she wanted to take a shower first and then do some skincare. Wen Xiao and Zhou Tao were chatting outside. When she heard the sound of the bathroom door closing, Wen Xiao knew that Yao Wen had finished taking a bath, and she winked at Zhou Tao. Zhou Doxin understood and said, how does Fu Xiao feel after being recognized back to the Fu family? How do you feel about getting along with Fu Nanli? Wen Xiao held a glass of juice in his hand and drank it one after another. Although Fu Xiao doesn't say it, he has always been eager to be recognized by his brother. You don't know what it does to him to be considered an illegitimate child, how hurtful it is. Someone bullied him in school before. I think if this continues, it may have a great impact on his mood and make him suffer. It's good now, a perfect ending. Fortunately, Fu Nanli doesn't care about illegitimate children or not. He has met a good brother. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1375. Actually, if you really recognize him, Fu Nanli should be more firm. What can people outside say? Just let them talk. The criticism from outsiders will never compare to the feelings of the family. Well, you have a point. At the corner of the wall, Yao Wen was wiping her hair with a big bath towel, standing there with her eyes lowered and her face expressionless, as if she was thinking about Wen Xiao's words and lost in her own emotions. The two girls were still talking about the Fu family's recognition of their illegitimate child. Her fingers were trembling a little and her expression was getting more and more ugly. Finally, he walked out and forced a smile. How about we read the script in a while? Get familiar with it? Zhou Tao stood up, okay, Sister Wen. After the two finished reviewing the script, it was already dark, and Wen Xiao and Zhou Tao returned to their residences. Zhou Tao looked back and whispered, Why do you ask me to ask about Fu Xiao? Wen Qiao smiled, it's not convenient to tell you now. Anyway, thank you for cooperating with me today. Zhou Tao wasn't someone who wanted to get to the bottom of things, so he didn't ask further. After they left, Yao Kewen's legs softened and she fell into the sofa, feeling a little lost. She is now glamorous, happily married, and a representative of the perfect woman in the eyes of the audience. She and her current husband Su Jiniang had already begun to fall in love, and they had an ongoing relationship with Xiao Liang, so they were stepping on two different sides. If the child is exposed, her marriage to Su Jiniang will most likely not be saved, and her personality will collapse. Although she has earned enough money to spend in several lifetimes, she cannot afford to lose it at the end of the year. She poured a glass of red wine and sat on the porch of the water villa. Her legs swung down gently so that she could step on the sea water. She sipped the red wine and vaguely thought of the child. When she first gave birth to the child, she was very ambitious and wanted to succeed in the Xiao family based on the value of the mother and the son. She knew that Xiao Lianjun liked her. Because of her background, she had never been recognized. At that time, she was full of confidence and would definitely be able to enter the Xiao family. What I didn't expect was that Xiao Lianjian's wife at the time, who was now the mistress of the Xiao family, was smarter than her. Even if she gave birth to a son, she was not recognized by Xiao Lianjian's mother. She completely lost hope and married Su Jiniang. She visited that child several times, but only when she was 5 years old did she realize that the child was not normal, had dementia, was autistic, and could not control himself. Later, she was worried that her husband would discover the secret, and she stopped going to Edinburgh. Over the years, she had hypnotized herself as if she had never given birth to that son. But the Fu family's sensational illegitimate child incident some time ago brought back her memories. She somewhat admired Mr. Fu for being able to recognize his younger brother so freely. But that's because he has the final say in the Fu family, and that incident was something his father committed back then. What he did could win him a virtuous reputation. Does Xiao Lianjun dare to do that? The child is 15 years old, but has an IQ of only 5. He is out of control and cannot be brought to the public. It is impossible for people like Xiao Lianjun to admit that child in public. Forget it, that child is not normal to begin with. Whether he admits it or not, he doesn't feel much about it, so just let him live quietly like that. She comforted herself like this. Wen Qiao did not stay in Nandao forever. He only stayed for a few days and then returned to Haikan. The cooperation project between Fu Nanli and Xiao Lianjun has begun. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1376. The project funds have been fully launched. At this time, Xiao Lianjun is already in a passive state. If the Fu family withdraws its investment, his losses will be huge. The Fu family has just acquired a large oil field. Even if there is any loss here, it is just a mosquito leg lost, and there is no feeling of distress at all. Fu Nanli made an appointment with Xiao Lianjun for dinner. At the dinner, Fu Nanli took the initiative to bring up the matter of the 4 sons of the Xiao family. Xiao Lianjian's eyes flashed, and he always felt that Master Fu was cooperating with him mainly to find out about his youngest son. He wanted to change the subject, but how could Mr. Fu be the one who could be fooled by him? After several rounds, the topic returned to the 4 sons of the Xiao family. Xiao Lianjun smiled awkwardly. I want to know how Mr. Fu knew that I had a 4th son. He kept this secret very closely. Only he, his current wife and Yao Kewen knew about it. None of his other 8 children knew about the child's existence. Fu Nanli said casually, Mr. Xiao, You don't have to ask me how I know it. In short, I won't tell anyone else about this. Don't worry about that. So does Miss Wen also know? She knows. Xiao Lianjian's eyes flashed, but there was nothing he could do against Fu Nanli. If Mr. Xiao doesn't want to say it, that's okay. This is just too polite. The cooperation project has already started. Young Master Fu has taken the initiative. How dare Xiao Lianjun deal with him? I do have a child, not born out of wedlock. Fu Nanli elegantly forked a piece of steak into his mouth. It's a bit similar to my brother's situation. Mr. Xiao doesn't have to keep silent about this kind of thing. I won't have any opinions on you just because of such a thing. The child was not exposed, not only because he was born out of wedlock, but also because the child was not in good health. We didn't want him to receive too much criticism. This was also good for the child. Fu Nanli nodded. Then what is wrong with the child? Our Chiao is a very powerful doctor. She has an uncle, Professor Su. If Mr. Xiao trusts me, you can ask Chiao to take a look at him. Xiao Lianjian's eyes flashed. I'm afraid it's difficult. He has dementia. It is the so-called imbecile. This disease is indeed what life is like. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have exposed your scar. Xiao Lianjun sighed and smiled reluctantly. It's okay, I'm used to it. It was me who committed the crime. I shouldn't have been so irresponsible back then. Are there no other symptoms besides dementia? Xiao Lianjun lowered his eyes. My emotions are not under control. Hey, just keep him like this. The doctor said he won't live to be 18. At that moment, Fu Nanli had the feeling that Xiao Lianjun even hoped that his imbecile son would die soon. That way there would be nothing to hold on to. Yes, that child, whose father didn't care and whose mother didn't love him, was just left in a bungalow thousands of miles away, and the people around him who took care of him were all servants who were not relatives. Just because of his parentage was a mistake. But was this mistake caused by himself? No, it was his parents who caused it, but he was the only one to taste the bitter consequences. Wen Qiao felt that the child was pitiful. Not only his father, but his mother probably also wished that he had never appeared in this world. Although she had never seen the child and only heard a few words from the waiter, she couldn't help but feel sorry for him. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me. The boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1377. Before the Fu family was about to receive the second batch of funds, Fu Nanli asked Xiao Lianjun again, Qiao wants to meet your son. Her medical skills are indeed superb. She cured my grandfather and my grandmother's old illnesses for many years. In addition, the young master of the Du family Du Boyan's asthma has improved a lot after her treatment. You should trust her medical skills. This is not a humming discussion, this is a clear threat. If you don't take us to see your son, the second batch of funds will be gone. Xiao Lianjun felt that he had been on a pirate ship, and he couldn't think about it. Unable to get off the Tiger, Xiao Lianjun could only agree to take them to Edinburgh to see his son. Fu Nanli and Wen pretended to be here for the first time, and it turned out to be the villa they had been to before. When they went, it was 7 o'clock in the evening local time. It was not completely dark outside, and the street lights were shining. Xiao Junhe stood on the window and looked outside. There were footsteps behind him, and he turned around in fear. His servant Aunt Zhen came up and slapped her hard. Xiao Junhe was beaten to the ground, trembling with fear. I'm good, I'm good. Why didn't you have dinner? Xiao Junhe pursed his lips. I'm not hungry. Aunt Zhen kicked him on the waist. Aren't you hungry? You said you're not hungry, you damn kid. Are you done with the food I work so hard to make? Xiao Jun wanted to cry, but Aunt Zhen gave him another big slap in the face. Cry, 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 you know how to cry. There was a knock on the door outside. Aunt Zhen, who was tall and muscular, pulled Xiao Junhee up. Someone wants to see you today. If you dare to talk nonsense, I won't be able to beat you to death tomorrow. Xiao Junhee huddled in the corner. Aunt Zhen, don't tell me, I won't tell you. Aunt Zhen is fine. He was used to being beaten. Even if his mental age was only 5 years old, he knew how to please this terrible woman. Only by pleasing him could he avoid being beaten. Fu Nanli and Wen Qiao got out of the car, and a servant came to the door and took them inside, through a small garden, around the swimming pool, and entered the villa door. The decoration style was typical of British aristocracy, with a rich and luxurious feel. Full of feeling. The leading maid was in her 40s, slightly chubby, and had a slender appearance. Wen Qiao's first impression of her was not very good. He always felt that this woman had an evil look on her face. Is it okay to let such a woman take care of a sick child? Wen Qiao asked Xiao Lianjun in a low voice, Mr. Xiao, where do these servants come from? They are all former servants of the Xiao family. They are very reliable. Wen Qiao's chin was probably because she judged people by their appearance. Maybe this woman looked fierce, but was actually very gentle. Where's Junhee? Xiao Lianjun was better than Yao Kewen and would come over to see the child several times a year. Aunt Zhen quickly said eagerly, I will bring the young master out right now. I wonder who these two are. My husband has never brought outsiders here. Xiao Lianjun said calmly, just bring him out. You shouldn't ask, so don't ask more. Aunt Zhen quickly went upstairs, grabbed Xiao Junhee's wrist, and said viciously, your dad is here, and he's bringing guests. Do you know how to speak? Xiao Junhee shrank. Aunt Zhen, I know. Wen Qiao heard footsteps and looked up. On the tan wooden stairs, the boy wore a white shirt, black knee-length shorts, and stockings that reached his calf. He was dressed in a standard British gentleman style. He looked quite delicate, but his walking posture, and you can tell from his expression that this boy is different from other 15-year-old boys. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1378. Wen Qiao heard footsteps and looked up. On the tan wooden stairs, the boy wore a white shirt, black knee-length shorts, and stockings that reached his calf. He was dressed in a standard British gentleman style. He looked quite delicate, but his walking posture, and you can tell from his expression that this boy is different from other 15-year-old boys. Xiao Junhee had rarely seen unfamiliar outsiders. His eyes shrank and he did not dare to look at Wen Qiao and Fu Nanli. He only dared to hide behind Aunt Zhen. Even though this woman hurt him the most, he only dared to hide behind her because he didn't know if others would be more vicious. Wen Qiao took a lollipop out of his trouser pocket, walked up to him, and said with a smile, please eat. A rainbow lollipop and a bear pattern appeared in front of Xiao Junhee's eyes, which was very cute. He looked at Wen Qiao timidly, not daring to reach out to pick it up. Aunt Zhen stood in front of him and glanced at Wen Qiao with a smile on her face. I'm sorry, this child is a stranger and cannot accept things from strangers. Wen Qiao frowned slightly and glanced at Aunt Zhen, inexplicably not liking her very much. I don't think he's afraid of me. Aunt Zhen said forcefully, this child can't express what he likes or dislikes. I'm afraid that you, young lady, will irritate him. Wen Qiao had just arrived, so there was no way he could argue with the nanny who had been taking care of the children. She handed the lollipop to Aunt Zhen, then give it to Junhee. Xiao Junhee stuck his head out to look at Wen Qiao. He was about the same height as Wen Qiao. He was a 15-year-old boy with a height of 168. He was not too short, but certainly not tall. He looked a bit childish, his eyes were pure and clear, and he felt a little scared, but not so scared that he wanted to run away. Wen Qiao saw a red mark on his left cheek and asked, what's going on? Aunt Zhen said quickly, this kid is naughty. I made a mistake and he climbed up high and accidentally fell down. Sir, I'm really sorry. I didn't take a good look at him. Xiao Lianjun had many children, so he didn't care much about this child. He waved his hand and said, "It's okay, it's his own fault. You have already taken enough care. Junhee, come here." Xiao Junhee glanced at Aunt Zhen, the fierceness in Aunt Zhen's eyes flashed, and Xiao Junhee walked to his father in silence. "You have to listen to Aunt Zhen more in the future, you know." Xiao Junhee tilted his head, with an aggrieved expression on his face. I am obedient." "Well, if you are obedient, I will visit you more often." "Well, I'm obedient." Xiao Lianjun had nothing to say to his imbecile son. He just told him to eat well, sleep well, and be obedient. Wen Qiao walked over again and looked at him with a smile. "Sister, can I play a game with you?" Before Xiao Junhee could say anything, Aunt Zhen stepped forward, grabbed Xiao Lianjun, and said with a fierce look on her face, "Miss, what are you doing?" Fu Nanli frowned. She was talking to Junhee, and Junhee didn't react excessively. "What are you doing?" He had an aura of calmness and authority about him, and Aunt Zhen was so frightened that he murmured, "This child may suddenly have an attack." Wen Qiao looked at her coldly. "I'm a doctor. I know how to talk to him without irritating his emotions, right Aunt Zhen? Don't worry, I know what's going on." Aunt Zhen was a little worried. The boy still had some bruises on his body. If he was discovered, she would have to find a way to cover up the lie. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me. Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1379. Xiao Lianjun nodded. "Aunt Zhen, just ask Miss Wen to take a look at him. She is a very famous doctor." Aunt Zhen could only step aside. While playing a small game with Xiao Lianjun, Wen Qiao took his pulse. The child had Down syndrome and was accompanied by symptoms of emotional loss. In fact, if Down syndrome is well educated, it can also go to school, and the emotional control can be slowly cured by the mentor. She thought she could convince Xiao Lianjun to let her give it a try. After checking the pulse, Wen Qiao touched his head. "You are really good at the game." Xiao Junhee lowered his head and smiled shyly. No one had ever praised him like this before. He liked this sister. When he looked up, he saw Aunt Zhen with a gloomy face. He was so frightened that he stopped smiling. Aunt Zhen stepped forward quickly. "He's a little scared, sir. I'd better send him upstairs first." "Well, take him up." Xiao Lianjun said helplessly. "You have also seen that this child is afraid of being born with an intelligence that is only 5 years old, and he is easily stimulated. There is no way for such a child to return to my family. There are too many people there. It's not convenient for him to recover." Wen Qiao suggested, "You can arrange for him to return to Haikan, so that I can treat him more easily. If Mr. Xiao is worried about his identity being exposed, I can arrange a place for him to live. It will be very private there and no one will find out his." Xiao Lianjian's face was a little gloomy. "Thank you Miss Wen for your kindness. Let me think about this. Junhee is not suitable for moving around for the time being. He will be scared if he moves to an unfamiliar place." Wen Qiao wanted to say something else, but Fu Nanli shook her hand and signaled her not to act too hastily. If Xiao Lianjun is upset, he might not have the chance to see the boy again, so he'd better come here. I hope Mr. Xiao will think about it carefully. I think that if his relatives are always with him and encourage him patiently, he will not have to be kept at home. Xiao Lianjun forced a smile. "Yeah, I will seriously consider it." How could he allow such a possibility of complications in his life? This child is in poor health, and the doctors have said that he will not live to be 18, and he will suffer while he is alive, so let's leave it at that. After so many years, he has fulfilled his responsibilities as a father. Wen Qiao and the others stayed in the villa for one night. The servants packed up the guest room for them to stay. They planned to leave Edinburgh early tomorrow morning. I don't know why, but I always feel that the servants here are not very kind to Xiao Junhee. After all, Fu Nanli is a man, his mind is not so delicate, and he does not have the sixth sense of a woman. He said casually, "Is that so? There are 4 servants here. Xiao Lianjun gives them high wages. With high wages, he only serves 1. Boys, there's no reason for them not to be careful." Wen Qiao put on his pajamas and frowned, "I hope I think too much." Although he only has the IQ of a 5-year-old child, a 5-year-old child actually understands a lot of things. I always feel that he is very pitiful. His parents, even if they don't love him, if the people around him don't care about him anymore, this child. Fu Nanli touched her head, "Don't think too much. If Xiao Lianjun wants to cooperate with the Fu family on this condition, it will probably be easy for him to hand over his son's blood." Wen Qiao frowned deeply, "I always feel that I am despicable like that, and I feel sorry for this child. Shen Ning's blood was promised by her father. I think that is disrespectful to the person involved. I still hope that this child Xiao Junhee can actively willing. Amnesiac Bigshot remembers only me, the boss lost his memory and only remembers me." Author, Ding Jiashu. Chapter 1380. Fu Nanli pinched her face, "Okay. I want to go to his room and see him. I'll accompany you." When Wen Qiao went to Xiao Junhee's room, the person named Ant Zhen happened to go to take a shower, and he was alone in his bedroom. It's not a warm decoration, it's even a bit lifeless, which makes people feel depressed. This child is already like this. He should decorate the room with some bright colors so that he will have a cheerful attitude. In this detail, she felt that the servants here did not care about the child. Xiao Junhee was already lying on the bed. When he saw someone coming in, he suddenly became a little nervous. Wen Qiao looked at him with a smile, "Sister brought you something delicious." After saying that, a very small cupcake appeared from behind like a magic trick. After all, Xiao Junhee was a child with an IQ of only 5 years old. He immediately lowered his guard and even looked at Wen Qiao expectantly. Wen Qiao was pleased that this child was a foodie and could be bribed if he had any weaknesses. From now on, all he had to do was bring some food to him when he saw him. Xiao Junhee took a few bites of the cake. Wen Qiao sat on the edge of the bed and said softly, "You should brush your teeth after eating the cake." "Okay, I know." He was wearing pajamas, which were not buttoned very well, exposing a little bit of his belly. Wen Qiao vaguely saw that there seemed to be bruises there. What happened here?" Wen Qiao pointed at his stomach, and Xiao Junhee was so scared that he quickly covered his stomach. "I'm fine." "Are you injured?" Xiao Junhee even threw away the cupcake in his hand and shook his head wildly, "It's not hurt, I'm not hurt." Seeing that he was a little agitated, Wen Qiao wanted to comfort him, but Xiao Junhee wouldn't let her get close. With a bang, the door was pushed open, and the woman named Ant Zhen rushed in, hugged the emotional Xiao Junhee, and glared at Wen Qiao, "Who let you in?" Wen Qiao frowned and said nothing. Ant Zhen calmed Xiao Junhee's emotions, and Xiao Junhee murmured, "I didn't say anything, I didn't say anything." Ant Zhen covered his mouth, okay, it's okay, it's okay." This incident also alarmed Xiao Lianjun, and Wen Qiao apologized, saying that she should not have entered his room rashly, and that she just wanted to chat with Junhee. Ant Zhen was filled with righteous indignation, "This child is a patient, and he has been told that he cannot see anyone else. Miss Wen, you are too willful." Fu Nanli wanted to say something, but Wen Qiao held his hand down, "Sorry, I didn't think carefully. Fortunately, Xiao Junhe's mood was stabilized, and the farce ended. When Xiao and Fu Nanli returned to their rooms, Fu Nanli's face was gloomy. It was ridiculous for a servant to dare to yell at his Xiao'er. He held back because Xiao'er wouldn't let him stand up for her. I always feel like something is weird. What? Aunt Zhen said that Xiao Junhe fell by himself, but how did he fall? There are bruises on his body and red marks on his face. It looks like he was beaten. Fu Nanli didn't speak. But to say that he was beaten, Xiao Junhe seems to be a little dependent on Aunt Zhen. Dependent? It's not so much dependence. It's more like Aunt Zhen taking the initiative to not let anyone get close to him. He is just a child with an IQ of 5 years old. He doesn't understand that. When Xiao didn't sleep well that night, he wanted to talk to Xiao Junhe again in the morning, but Aunt Zhen told him that he was irritated last night and couldn't go downstairs. Breakfast was brought to the room. When Xiao lowered his eyes, and Xiao Lianjun said, "You don't have to be upset. It's okay. The child can't stand the stimulation."